Hi guys, this is LaQueen on Reflections of 9/11. This is part three. So bear with me, guys. I'm still having to do a lot with media issues, set it up and see like that. So again, thank you to the Onondaga the Onondaga Community College Library for helping me go ahead and get this set up and arranged. So I'm still having a lot of setup issues, but I just want to go ahead and briefly review over the last thing hey, I have that one listener. Thank you for paying attention. So this is part three of my little broadcast. Okay, thank you, one viewer. I could try to put this down on the chat board. Thank you to one viewer. All right. Okay, good. So guys, again, like I was talking about in the last broadcast, dealing with reflections on 9/11, having to deal with any kind of war situation, domestic violence situation, any kind of intimate partner abuse, any kind of situation like that. Again, my name is LaQueen Battle. I'm so forgot to introduce myself like this. So I'm going to finish off. I should have started the series off with this. My name is LaQueen Battle, and I am a certified medical assistant and phlebotomist. I have 3 degrees. My first degree is as a medical assistant at Northwest Educational Center in Houston, Texas. My second degree is with associate's degree in liberal arts from here at Washington College. And my third degree is a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish and linguistics. So I have 2 degrees in Spanish and 1 degree in the medical system with over 6, 8, 10 years of medical assistant experience, home health care, clinical office work, as well as a lot of Medicare billing and coding experience, as well as I have been a survivor of domestic and sexual abuse as a young child, and now as a grown an adult in my 30s, I'm still having to overcome a lot of the issues that I went through as a child in Los Angeles, California. Now as an adult here in New York. So I've been kind of moving around a little bit, but I've been moving because I refuse to settle. So the reason why I have been moving is because I refuse to settle in a lot of situations, a lot of issues, circumstances I have been through in my life. So moving around doesn't mean I'm unstable. It just means that I refuse to settle. I'm looking for better opportunities as well. So there you go. So I am certified as a medical assistant and phlebotomist. I'm also certified by the Erie Department of Health in Buffalo, New York, to do Narcan opioid overdose training. So if somebody's having a overdose issue, I'm certified to help that person as well as provide first aid. And I have over 18 years experience. I've been certified for over 18 years with CPR and first aid through the American Red Cross in Chicago, Florida, and Texas and California. So there you go. And I'm applying for my nursing degree. I'm going to be attending nursing school in January, February here in Syracuse, New York. So there you go. Those are a little bit of my credentials. Also, I am not a medical doctor. I'm not a authorized medical physician. I am not a nurse practitioner. I don't have any kind of licenses to prescribe medication, but I do have personal experience that if I can go through this situation, I know anybody else can go through the same situation that I've been through. So if I can overcome, then I know that you guys can overcome as well. So there we go. All right, let's go ahead and finish off the part 3 of the situation as well. Again, we're dealing with a lot of reflections, a lot of issues with people that have survived any kind of traumatic situations going on in their life, whether it's 9/11, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's World War I, World War II, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's, I'm just going off on a whim here. Now, I know my life situations have nothing to do at all with Vietnam. My personal life situations have nothing to compare to World War I or to or the Holocaust. My life as a young woman here in the millennial America can never compare to the Holocaust. It can never compare to Hawaii and the bomb of Pearl Harbor. My personal life as a millennial baby can never compare to World War I. Can never compare to situations in Africa, can never compare to anything that anybody has been through. Because what I'm trying to say is I'm not better than anybody. But if I know that I can survive my personal situation, my personal sexual abuse, my personal life, my personal issues, whether it's gay, straight, homosexual, bisexual, lesbian, transgender, you have HIV, you're clean, you're safe, whether you're a safe hotel, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. If I can survive it, I know that you can survive as well. All right, so go ahead, let's finish off the part 3. Now I'm gonna go ahead and swing this over. Here's a new little board that I made. I'm gonna swing it over to the last board right here, okay? All right, so pretty much we went through a lot of situations. Here's Mr. Bones. We have to deal with his Cabela's off. So we have to deal with, keeping our physical body in motion as well as keeping our physical body moving in motion, keeping tracking, as well as eating healthy, taking care of our body, our physical body to be able to survive through any kind of situations, eating good, and then taking care of our mental energy, as much as whether it's learning, whether it's going to counseling, psychotherapy, whether it's talking to a friend, talking to a minister, talking to a preacher, a pastor, whoever. And then also we're just going to go ahead and briefly review this right quick. Okay, so if you, any kind of situation that you're going through, you need that perseverance. You have to understand, if somebody has been through the same situation that you've been through, and then your neighbor next door or your roomie, you have to go and talk to them. You can't be ashamed, and you can't have pride in yourself saying, you know what, I'm too ashamed. I have too much pride in me because I don't want to admit to my neighbor, I don't want to admit to my roomie that I'm broke. I don't want to admit to my friend, my best friend, that I have issues with drug addiction. I have issues with sexual addiction. I have issues with, with men that have addiction, that have issues with, with sexual abuse. I don't want to admit that to my family. I don't want to admit that to my roomie. I don't want to admit that to my neighbor next door, because if they've been through it, then I know that I can overcome it. I'm too ashamed. I don't want to tell anybody about my business. But if you don't talk about it, then you won't overcome that situation. Whether you're male or female, it goes in both ways. So you have to have the perseverance to overcome. And if you can't go to your neighbor next door, there's also plenty of support groups out there. There are Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Narcotic Anonymous, there's Celebrate Recovery, there's church support groups, there's a whole bunch of support groups out there, whether it's church, religious, or related, or whether it's just a support group with, the National Institute of Health support groups, the NAMI, or whether it's bipolar support groups, or whether it's addiction recovery support groups, or whether it's gambling support groups, or whether it's family support groups, or whether it's counseling therapy, whether it's meditation, mediation, anything like that, you are able to overcome it. Because if somebody has been through what you've been through and you keep it to yourself, you're only holding yourself back. Because if somebody has been through the same thing that you've been through, you can talk to them and you can overcome it faster and better. There you go. All right. So any situations with 9/11, we briefly went through, a lot of economy. It's going a little bit forward. Thank you. Briefly went through a lot of the economy changes, president changes, things like that. 2001, we had President Bush in office. Then 2011, we had the 9/11 terror attacks on New York City, the World Trade Center, World Trade Centers, when the planes were straight through the towers. And the bombs exploded the World Trade Towers in New York City, as well as in Virginia and Maryland. And then in 2006, 2008, when President Obama was elected as the first official Black president, we had the media was changing: Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The economy was moving. People were developing businesses. Money was moving faster. People were learning. Learning processes were changing. Education was changing. The economy was going bigger and bigger and bigger. Even though with Bush, the economy was changing as well. But with President Obama, the world economy, trade, the world nations, economy was changing. The relations with England and the United States were doing good. The relations with the world trade, outgoing trade and ingoing trade. The United States economy was booming when President Obama was in office, as well as when President Bush was in office. But it was still booming because people were like, okay, here change is coming to America. Okay, we're moving forward. Change is all we need. Change is coming to America. We got it. President Obama in office. All right. Then when President Trump was in office, Make America Great Again. Well, I say is Make America Better Again. When President Trump came into office, now you had all the 9/11 babies turning 18 years old. So you had all the babies that were born in 2001 during the economy. Now you have all these 9/11 babies turning 18 years old, okay? You have all these 9/11 babies that were born during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Now my son, Samuel, he was born on September 8th, 2001. September 8th, 2011. 2011 on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. But you have the babies that were born 10 years earlier than he was during 2001, September the 11th, 2001. You have all these 9/11, 2001 babies now in 2019. Now these babies are turning 18 years old. And they're not only turning 18 years old, but they're graduating from high school. They're going into college. They're getting career jobs. They go into the economy. Now you have all these 9/11 babies that not many people now recognize. You have all these millennial babies. So you have all these birth certificates that say 1/1/2001, 1/1/2001. 2001. You have all these new millennial babies coming into existence. Okay, now you have more millennial babies. You have social media. You have an influence of Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and WhatsApp and all these social media apps into existence. And now here in 2019, as well as not just social media is changing, but as well as an influx of personality, psychological diseases as well. So social media is changing. People are learning more. Technology is changing, but as well as people are having a now influence psychological disease as well. So you have more people being diagnosed with autism. You have more people being diagnosed with ADHD. You have more people being diagnosed with the spectrum of autistic disorder spectrum is now changing. So there's different varieties. So you have more Black people, Black African descent people on the autistic spectrum as more than white Caucasian people. Okay, but that needs to change. That scale also needs to change. So now in 2019, you have the 9/11 babies turning 18 years old, as well as people as the more inflation of personality disorders. So you have now a higher prevalence of bipolar disorder. You have a now higher prevalence of personality disorders. Now you have more than ever before. You have people now saying, well, I have a personality disorder. I have multiple personality disorders. I have MPD. I have dissociative identity disorder, DID. I have dissociative identity disorder. But you know what? You can't write a pencil. You can't sign your name on a piece of paper if you have dissociative identity disorder. So if I have multiple personalities in my body, there's no way that I could sign my name on a piece of paper because somebody else has to sign for me. So if I have multiple personalities in one person, there's no way I'm going to get a job. You know what I'm saying? If I have multiple personalities in one person, there is no way that I'm going to be able to actually have a phone, record on social media, record on YouTube live saying, okay, I'm recording on social media. I'm recording a video saying I have multiple personality disorders. Well, that one personality has to record the phone and be in the same emotions, be in the same identity, be in the same mental identity, mental strength as the other identities that may come into existence. So that same identity, that same personality you have a master and then you have the others that control it. So you have a manager and then you have the other little siblings that control that one person. But you can't have dissociative identity disorder if you are constantly multitasking. You have a job, you have a car, you have a phone, you're on social media, you're on YouTube. You can't have multiple personalities if you have a channel on YouTube. There's no way you can do that. There's no way. It's not possible because that one person, that one identity has to be in the same mood. It has to be in the same emotions. It has to be in the same mindset as the other identities that are controlling in that one person. So that one identity, that one characteristic, that one emotion, that one identity has to be in the same mood as in that one person. So dissociative identity disorder has now been at a more prevalence, has been at a higher percentage now in 2019 than has ever been before. It has to do with your mood, it has to do with your energy. And when you're dealing with people that have multiple personalities, now more than ever before in 2019, they're always constantly changing. But just because your energy changes when you have a cup of coffee, or whether you're working out, or whether you just got a new job, you just got hired, you have more money in the bank, it doesn't mean that you have multiple personality disorder. It doesn't mean that just because your mood changes, you're happy one moment and you're sad the next. It doesn't mean that you have bipolar disorder. That's just normal. Just because you're energetic, you're going to the movies, you're going on a Saturday night with your friends, you're having fun on a Saturday night with your friends, you get, you have a couple drinks, you get overloaded, you get drunk, you throw up, whatever, you have an overdose. I mean, whatever, you get drunk. That doesn't mean that you have bipolar disorder and you're schizophrenic. No, it doesn't mean that. It's just how it is with these psychological disorders. They're out of the stream. They're out of range. They're extreme. So here's the range. Here's the normal range. When you deal with a normal adult, a normal person, normal human being, a normal teenager. So here's a normal range right here. Okay. So a normal, there's no such thing as a normal person. But when you're dealing with somebody that has autism, or when you're dealing with somebody that has bipolar disorder, or when you're dealing with somebody that has schizophrenic or paranoid disorder, delusions and hallucinations, there's a scale. there's a scale, there's a balance here. So you have what a normal person experiences, like on a Saturday night. You may go out with your friends and you may have a good time. You may get drunk or throw up, whatever. That's normal because it's within this range right here. That's normal. But when you're dealing with somebody that has bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or autism, they're out of that. They're out of this normal range. So here's a normal range of what a person in their 13s through 25 goes through. Okay. But when you deal with bipolar disorder and autism, that person is out of range. They're completely out of range. Okay. They're completely out of range. Okay. So say for instance, I have finals. I'm being stressed. I have a stress, and coffee. They say that coffee sometimes causes hallucinations. People say a high percent of coffee drinkers have hallucinations. So sometimes coffee has been actually scientifically proven that coffee causes delusions. It makes you hallucinate. But just because you drink coffee doesn't mean you have paranoia. Just because you drink coffee doesn't mean you have schizophrenia. Just because you drink coffee doesn't mean you have bipolar disorder. But at the same time, somebody with bipolar disorder, somebody with autism, they're completely out of the norm. Their behavior, their mental capacity to organize thoughts, to actually speak thoughts, to actually think, to comprehend things is out. They may be extremely high, where they're just constantly having delusions, paranoia, going around town thinking somebody's out to get me every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not just on the weekends where you're going out and you run about the streets because you're drunk. That's just a weekend. But when you have somebody with paranoid schizophrenia, they're doing it at least 12 hours or more a day. And you have to look up into the manual of mental orders. Okay, so mental disorders. So that person is extremely out of context. They're usually doing this 12 or more hours a day. They're having hallucinations 12 or more hours a day. They're constantly doing the same repetitive behavior over and over again, at least 12 or more hours a day. So paranoia, bipolar, schizophrenia, that's an upscale. That's at least every single day, or at least 12 or more hours a day. Now, when you're dealing with somebody that has depression, hallucination, any kind of low, even autism, that low learning disorder spectrum, now you're dealing with somebody that's extremely low, extremely depressed, where it's not that they can't get out of bed, they can't take a shower from day to day. It's not that they don't like taking a shower. It's just that there's something that has mentally drained their energy. So it's not that they can't take a shower, it's that they're not able to move. They're not able to actually function. They're not able to be able to function throughout life. So when you deal with somebody who has clinical depression, they're literally not able to move or function for at least 8 or 10 hours a day. So when you're dealing with somebody that has actually had episodes of clinical depression, this is on the low end, not the high end where they're bipolar or paranoid, but on the low end, they're literally not able to move in daytime working hours, at least from 8 to 10 hours, they're not able to actually functionally move. So when you're dealing with a lot of these psychological disorders, especially with clinical depression or bipolar, that person's metabolism is actually decreased. That person's it's not just about energy or coffee, drinking caffeine, high caffeinated drinks. Because a lot of people think that people that have autism or bipolar, they're not supposed to drink caffeine, and that's not necessarily so. But when you deal with somebody that's going through at least a clinical depression or on the autism disorder, they're not able to move. Okay, they're not able to function. Literally, their body is tight. They are actually at a standstill. So they really can't even physically move. And even their breathing, their breaths, their respiration is low. Their respirations are, their physical breathing, their respirations in and out is actually low. They're clinically, they're physically, they're mentally drained. So that person is not able to actually function. So you actually may see that person that has been in the bed not just for 2 or 3 days, not just been on the weekends, but they've actually been sleeping in their bed, laying down in their bed for at least 1 or 2 weeks or more, because their bones are tight. Their bones are tight. This arm is about to break. Their bones are tight, and they're physically, their breath, their respirations are low. They're physically not able to move or function. And that is when you're dealing with any kind of prevalence of any kind of psychological disorder. Psychological disorders not only affects the mind. People think, oh, the psychological disorder affects the mind. All I have to do is take a pill and I'll be over, I'll be done with. Okay, it's not, it's more than just a pill. When you deal with a psychological disorder, it's more than just a pill, it's more than just your mind. And this has been a higher prevalence now in the late millennium. It really doesn't have to do about Trump or Obama. It's just now that technology is changing, now people actually have more knowledge about these disorders. But just because there's more knowledge about these psychological disorders does not necessarily mean that there's a higher percentage of people that have them. Just because there's more knowledge, more insight into these psychological disorders, ADHD and bipolar disorder, does not necessarily mean that a lot more people now have these disorders. Just because more people know about it doesn't mean that more people have it. That's not necessarily the case. That is why you have to have a medically, clinically authorized physician or nurse practitioner or somebody in higher authority, a psychologist or a board certified medical psychologist or a board certified medical psychologist, a board certified medical physician or a board certified doctor of office, somebody that has been board certified to tell you that you have ADHD, somebody that has been board certified to tell you that you have bipolar disorder, somebody that has been board certified to tell you that you have autism. It has to be somebody that has been board certified by their state, our Department of Health, or by their region, whatever country they is, tell them that they know what they're doing and they know what they're talking about. That's because they look at you and your behaviors, but they have actually have had other people and other patients and other a history of clients that have been through the same thing that you have been through. And just because they recognize the same symptoms, not only in a Black female, but also in a white male, also in a Latino male, also in an Asian female. They recognize the same characteristics and the same symptoms. And these people, not just because they're the same race, not just because they're the same gender, but because they're board certified physician or they're board certified psychologist recognizes the same symptoms in each individual case that they've seen. Therefore, they can diagnose you with ADHD. Therefore, they can diagnose you with bipolar disorder. Therefore, they can diagnose you with OCD. Therefore, they can diagnose you with autism. Okay, it has to be a board certified person. It cannot be, I'm going to repeat this, okay? So it cannot be a pastor that diagnoses with you with bipolar disorder. It cannot be a teacher that diagnoses you with OCD. It cannot be a teacher. A teacher can look at your symptoms. They can look at your signs and say, this person's acting out of control. This student is acting erratic. This student is behaving too erratic in class. That teacher cannot diagnose that student with autism. That teacher cannot diagnose that student with OCD. They can see the signs and the symptoms and the characteristics that other students have had before, but it has to be a board certified physician, or it has to be a board certified psychologist, a board certified psychiatrist that has been recognized by the Department of Health to diagnose that child or diagnose that adult with the same characteristics as ADHD, with the same characteristics as autism, with the same characteristics as OCD, with the same characteristics as bipolar disorder, with the same characteristics as schizophrenia. It has to be a board certified personnel that has been regulated and certified by their Department of Health to recognize the same symptoms of these psychological diseases in these children and these students and even in adults. Now, just because it's 2020, 2019, and more people have access to the internet and more people have access to all this information about mental disorders on the internet, it doesn't mean more access means more people that have the diseases, okay? It doesn't mean more access, more people. What it means is that more people are actually misdiagnosing their kids and misdiagnosing their students with these disorders. Okay. Now, even pastors and preachers and evangelists and counselors and, you know, and even parents are diagnosing their kids and their kids and their family members with these disorders, with these mental disorders. But like I said, just because it's like 2019 and 2020 and people have more knowledge and more information in the internet and more information to social media that spreads knowledge, spreads fake news. And fake news is real. It's not just President Trump. It's been all the same since President Obama. It's all been the same since President Bush. People are actually spreading fake news. And actually, it is true, but he goes to an extreme about it because you have to actually back up what you're talking about, okay? You can't just talk about it. You have to actually back it up, okay? So just because there's more social media and more Facebook and more articles on the internet and more articles about mental disorders and more autism articles and more bipolar disorder, more knowledge about bipolar disorder, more knowledge about autism, it does not necessarily mean that that person, that child has the disorder. It has to be a board-certified clinician, a board-certified physician, or a board-certified psychologist, or a board-certified psychiatrist to recognize that that child, that adult, that student has ADHD, that child has OCD, that student, that child has autism, that student, that child has bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, paranoid delusions. It has to be a board-certified clinician by their department, state board department of health. And these doctors and these clinicians and these psychiatrists and these psychologists have to continually be educated on what's going on in the news, have to be continually educated every single year, every single month. They have to know what is going on, the changes to medicines, the changes to technology, the changes to the procedures in the medical field, because medicine always changes. It always changes. So sometimes people think, okay, you know what, this medicine is old. This medicine is old and not many people are using it. But just because that medicine is old doesn't mean you have to change it. Okay, medicines continually work, and if they're not working, then there has to be an authorized review in a journal of medicine, in the Harvard Medical Review. If medicine is no longer working, it has to be removed from the shelves. If that medicine is no longer working, it has to be approved, no longer functioning for patients through the Medical Journal Association, through the American Medical Association, through all these journals, all these publications, all these associations have to recognize that this prescribed medicine no longer works. Now, if you have a patient that has been with their doctor for 20, 30 years on the same medication, and that medication has helped to stabilize their mood, if that same pill, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one pill, it can be a combination of pills, it can be a combination of therapy treatments, pills and counseling and exercise. It can be a combination of therapies. But if the same combination of therapies has worked for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and that relationship between that patient and that doctor has worked, and if that patient goes to another doctor, and that new doctor says, this no longer works, you have to do what I say, then that patient has to get a second opinion, because relationships matter. And a 20, 30, 40, 50-year relationship matters more than a 30-minute visit with somebody that doesn't even know nothing about that patient. So whenever a patient usually sees, and now we're going into 2019, when a patient usually has a long history, a long medical relationship history with their old doctor, that new clinician, that new doctor has to sign a release of information over from that patient to their old doctor to verify that that patient knows what they're doing. Usually, anytime a patient has to see a new doctor, they have to sign a release of information. Now we're going into 2019, where we have all these doctors, where we have all these pharmaceutical companies overprescribing Ritalin, overprescribing OCD pills, overprescribing information, overprescribing medications, But that doesn't necessarily mean that more knowledge means more people have the disease, more people have the disorder. Like I said before, more knowledge doesn't mean more people. Okay, what it means is that there's actually an overabundance of misdiagnosed diseases, misdiagnosed psychological disorders. Many people have been misdiagnosed when all they need is just a simple combination of a mixture of treatments, a mixture of therapies, a mixture of exercise, a mixture of the stable medications, a mixture of life and social and family balance structure more than just getting on and off from different kind of medication treatments, okay? You have to have a combination of treatments sometimes is the best way in order to get to actually overcome a history of sexual abuse, a history of drug addictions. There's actually has to be a combination of therapies, a combination of treatments to help somebody overcome a 30, 40, 50-year history of drug addiction. It's not going to happen overnight, and it won't happen with a weekend treatment of a particular medication. It just won't happen like that, especially when you're dealing with somebody that has clinical depression, especially when you're dealing with somebody that has bipolar disorder, autism. It has to be a combination of treatments to get through. Now you're dealing with 2019, 2016, 2000, even going up until 2020, when more people say, "Oh, I have this psychological disorder. Prescribe me, give me this medication." But just because there's a more knowledge, just because it's spread all over the internet, all over commercials, all over TV, to take this pill, this magic pill that will make you feel better, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the disorder, you have the disease. Because with every single pill that you take, there's always a side effects. With every single new pill that comes out on TV, or new pharmaceutical company that comes out with a new magic pill, new magic medication, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the magic pill, because each magic pill comes with side effects. It comes with, it comes with diarrhea. It comes with constipation. It comes with, low blood pressure. It comes with, every pill. You have to make sure that you're okay with the side effects of that pill. And not many people think now, just because it's 2020, they don't check their box. They don't check what's the ingredients that's in the pill. They don't check the side effects that the pharmacists at the medicine counter, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid gives them when they're going through all these medications. Okay, so now we're done with our overview from 2000 to 2019, going into millennial. You have had perseverance, faith, and stability to get you going through what you're going through. So I have a little sniffles. I'm sorry. So now we're going to go over here to another. I'm gonna back it up a bit. Back it up. Good. Can you see this? Can you guys see this? I'm trying to lift it up a bit. Okay, is that higher or lower? Can you see it? Higher, lower. A little bit lower. There we go. I'm trying to adjust this. No, that works. That works. That's perfect. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Good. There we go. All right. How am I doing? Great. Great. Thank you to YouTube. Thank you, guys. Thank you, YouTube, for letting me get my platform across. Great. All right. Now, bear with me. Now we're talking about, now let's get from more social media and all that perseverance side. Now let's go into politics. Let's go more into wars and things like that. Let's go more into presidents, okay? Now, from 2000 up until when the millennials started, we have 1, 2, and 3 presidents since the millennials started. So for all these 9/11 babies that were born around September 11th, 2001, now we have all these millennial babies, all these 9/11 babies turning 18 years old now. So you have all these babies being born, all these millennial babies were born. Even 2000, 2001. Now you have all these millennial babies from 2019, and now they're turning 18 years old. Now you have all these millennial babies right now, as of today, that were born in 2000 and 2001. Now they are straight up 18 years old, 18 and 19 years old. Now they're getting jobs. Now they're graduating from high school. Now they're going into the economy. Now they're getting full-time jobs, have families, even have 2, 3 kids now. You have all these 18-year-old babies now have 2 and 3 kids now, okay? But that hasn't changed the politics of the economy, okay? Now all these millennial babies are now graduating from high school, going into college, have their own families now, okay? And now the influence of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Apple, iPhones, all this Google, all this social media is not producing. Okay, you have money is going to the system. Now people are actually getting real jobs. Like, I need a real job. I need a real job. Now I'm having to compete with 18-year-old millennial babies getting jobs above me. And I'm in my 30s with three college degrees. And you have an 8-year-old kid straight out of high school getting a full-time job more than I can. Like, what's up with the economy? But that doesn't change, okay? Now I'm gonna go a little bit into politics, okay? So when the babies were born in September 11, 2001, you had in New York City, that was when the war of terrorism started, okay? In New York City and Virginia. And was it Baltimore, Maryland, or was it Virginia? I think it was at the Pentagon. The Pentagon is in Virginia. Okay, there you go. So you had the 9/11 attacks in the Pentagon, and you had the 9/11 attacks in New York City at the World Trade Center. So you had the war on terror started, and then you had President Bush. President Bush W was in office. Okay. Shout out to President Bush from Texas. Shout out to you and your family. Kudos. Okay. So you had President Bush. President Bush W was in office. W was in office. Okay. So you had the millennials started, and President W Bush was in office. Okay. So that was in 2001. Okay. Again, 2001, the millennials started. Okay. 2000. Okay. 2000. So that's when the millennials started. Okay. President Bush. W. Okay. W. So the terrorist attacks happened September 11, 2001. The babies were being born, okay, 6 pounds, 5 ounces, 8 pounds, 9 ounces, 10 pounds, 5 ounces. All of these brand new babies, preemies, adults, regular babies were being born on September the 11th, 2001, as well as 2000. And we had a new millennial. The internet was exploding. You had AOL, Yahoo, AOL Instant Messenger. You had Google was just beginning. You had, you had all these internet networking companies were doing good. You had people actually, and eBay was booming. A lot of people were on eBay selling products and businesses. And this was now in 2001, okay? And W was in office. He was doing good for economy. He was doing good for business, for farmland. He was pretty much, just, I'm President Bush. I love the American people. I love the American economy. But at this time, the economy was more conservative. And as you know, the Bush family is very, 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 very conservative. So rest in peace to President George Bush, as well as to First Lady Barbara Bush. Rest in peace to the Bush family. But the economy was still doing good because you had the millennial, 2000, the new economy, the new millennial, and the economy was actually doing good. Production was booming, okay, because again, people were going into a war, the war on terror, okay. The war on terror. So people being recruited into the Army and the Marines and the Air Force and the Navy, come join America, be Army One. Those Army commercials on TV. Fight the war in Afghanistan, be Army. Army is one. You had all those Army commercials and all those Navy commercials and all those Air Force commercials on TV because that was a war on terror. Okay, we were still fighting, trying to find Osama bin Laden. We were still fighting against all the terrorists and all the people that were bombing. So that was a war on terror. That was 2001 and 2000. We had a new economy. Production was booming, but we also had to deal with the war on terror. Okay, now up until 2003. Now, when the 9/11 happened, I was in Texas. Okay, in Forward, Texas, watching the 9/11 attacks on the TV screen in my ROTC cadet class with First Sergeant Lashley, who's still there. Shout out to First Sergeant Lashley and Sergeant Natera and Colonel Crossley from Northside ROTC. Shout out to you guys. This is a quick shout out. First Sergeant Lashley, First Sergeant Natera, and First Sergeant Colonel Crossley. Shout out to you guys. So at this time when 9/11 happened, I was in my high school room, sitting in my chair, watching the 9/11 attacks on NBC, ABC, and Fox News, watching the planes go straight through the World Trade Towers, go straight through, and hit that child, go straight through. I was watching that on TV, live on TV. Okay, I was watching that, and then I decided once I graduated from high school, I'm going to serve my country. I'm going to join the army. I'm going to fight against terror. And then here comes 2003. Just graduated from high school, Eastern High School, and you know what? I don't want to go to war. I don't want to fight against the Taliban. I want to have my arms. I want to have my legs. You see all these kids, my age, 16, 17, 8 years old, 21 years old, 25 years old, coming straight from Afghanistan, coming straight from Iraq, and they're coming home with no arms, with no legs, with no limbs, with half their torsos cut off because of all these WMDs that completely tore away their bodies. So pretty much you see all these young kids in 2003 up until 2004, 2005 coming home from the war on terror with half their limbs cut off. And you see all these organizations, all these charities fighting for, let's fight for the troops, let's welcome them back home, let's protect the troops, let's help them. But the psychological process was going low, because if you have a soldier coming from a war with no arms, no legs, how are you going to be able to take care of that soldier? And how is that soldier going to be able to take care of their family? So you have all these soldiers coming back from the war on terror with no arms, no legs, and you have all these WMDs blowing up our soldiers' bodies and completely taking away not just Army guys, Army girls and guys, but also Navy men. You have and Marines, and you see all these pictures on the news, morning news, evening news, of all these soldiers, of all these men that have died in the war on terror. And you see the pictures of these kids, young kids, 18, 19 years old, and they always post them every single night on the nightly news, on the morning news, on the evening news. All these kids that have died from these WMDs explosions. And it wasn't just friendly, it was WMDs and friendly fire. So you had all these WMDs and friendly fire from their own troops killing our kids, killing our soldiers. So you see every single night on morning news and afternoon news and ABC nightly news, and even on the Today Show and on Oprah Winfrey and on Donna, all these shows, all these talk shows, everybody was pretty much getting pictures of our young soldiers, our guys and our girls dying. These snapshots, these headshots of them in their uniforms, their military uniforms, and they're dead. They're 18, 19-year-old kids dying of WMDs and dying of friendly fire. So you see all these, and if it's not a WMD, if it's not friendly fire, then they're coming back home to the United States with no limbs. One arm's cut off, the other arm's cut off, one leg's cut off. So they got one leg and one arm. And they're 18, 19 years old. 18, 19, 21-year-old kids with only one arm. And just it's sad to see our soldiers, our young guys, 18, 19-year-old kids coming back from the war on terror that we supported, and we fight to kill Osama bin Laden. When Obama came to office, we killed Osama bin Laden and his son. But our kids and our soldiers, our Navy men, our Marines, our Army men, our Air Force guys are even being blown up, have WMDs and friendly fire, and taking away their body parts. So all our kids are coming back home with no limbs. And so how you have a kid, a guy or a girl supposed to come back home and take care of their family, their brand new baby? How are you supposed to have kids coming back home with no legs, being able to work a full-time job, but taking care of the 2 and 3-year-old kids at home? That's a full-time job in itself. So who's going to work if they can't take care of themselves? So you have this soldier being on disability for the rest of their life and being on VA benefits for the rest of their life. And who's going to work? Who's going to be able to take care of the family? The wife. The wife is going to be the one that has to take care of it. The family has to support the soldier that has no limbs. So there's a lot of organizations that come into existence with all these soldiers coming back home and also it's not even now. WMDs are friendly fire. Now, a lot more of these soldiers have what? PTSD. A lot more of these soldiers have to deal with the experiences of seeing their friends being blown up with WMDs. And now a lot more of our soldiers, our Army men, women, our Marine men and women, our Navy men and women, our Air Force, now it's even higher in the Army and the Marines, having to deal with PTSD. So now they're clinically being diagnosed with PTSD. These soldiers and Marine men and women can no longer work a full-time job, can no longer go outside to look at the sunlight, can no longer be able to function in society, can no longer be able to have a full-time relationship with their wives and their kids because they are dealing with PTSD. And people think, oh, PTSD it just happens one time and it's over with. Oh, it's just a war experience and it's over with. But these men and these women dealing with the experiences of having to deal with WMDs, having to deal with friendly fire, are also having to deal with PTSD for the rest of their lives. And you see all these TV drama episodes of Law and Order, and all these TV dramas seeing soldiers and men and women having the war, even people that were in 9/11 attacks, people that were working in the buildings and the towers. They're having constantly reliving that same episode of seeing people fall from the sky in the towers, seeing people fall from the sky, seeing people dirt on the ground, seeing body parts every single where. The people that were in the towers, the people that were in the Pentagon, and people that fought overseas for our country are now having experiences, chronic mental episodes of PTSD, where they are constantly reliving 9/11 every single day of their life. And if it's not every single day of their life, it may happen like on a Monday where they relive 9/11, or it may happen on a Wednesday where they relive the experience of the day of 9/11, or it may happen only on the weekend where they're free and they don't have time for themselves. But 9/11 now becomes a constant 24/7 episode of PTSD, not only for military men and women, but also for people that were in New York City, and now for people that were also in Pentagon. So you see a higher elevation of suicides, not necessarily from soldiers, but for people that are dealing with PTSD, reliving 9/11 attacks every single day of their life. There's a higher percentage of suicides after 9/11 than ever before, because people can handle it. They can handle it. How can you bomb America? How can you? Yeah, I'm loud. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Larry Minute. So now you have a higher percentage of people dealing with PTSD after 9/11 than ever before. And there's a higher percentage of suicides after 9/11. And it's not just from military soldiers, but it's from people that were in New York City and around New York State, and people that moved and traveled from New York City to different states, to different countries all around the world, because they can't deal with. You can't bomb America. You can't bomb the United States of America. It has never happened since the American Revolution. It has never happened since for America. You can never bomb America or its borders. It will never happen. It can never happen. The terrorists will never happen. But it happened at Pearl Harbor in the 70s and 80s. I mean, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. It happened in Pearl Harbor. But Pearl Harbor was one incident. And now in 2001, it happened again. So you have Pearl Harbor, and now you have New York City. New York City, one of the biggest financial institutions sites of the entire world, from Paris to London to Germany. And now it happens a terrorist attack on New York City. A terrorist attack on New York City, of a city of over 10 million people. You have a terrorist attack. How can that happen? How can that happen? And so you see a high percentage of people dealing with PTSD, soldiers coming back home from the war. And now you have people dealing with PTSD for the rest of their lives. And people think, oh, PTSD, you go to counseling, you'll be okay. You take medication, go to counseling, you'll be all right. But no, because 9/11 was real. It was real for the people that were there. It was real for the people that babies were being hurt, that hospitals were doing to babies that were born on 9/11. It was real. It was real for me, for my son, when he was born around that time in Los Angeles, California, in the West Coast, and they were dealing with people that were on the East Coast, and that was 10 years after 9/11, and that still is real for a lot more people that are still in New York City and New York State and around the world that were in the terrorist attacks in New York City and Virginia. And PTSD is real. You see our soldiers coming back with no limbs. They have to deal with WMDs, have to deal with friendly fire. And you have people that are also having to deal with PTSD for the rest of their lives. So that's just reflections on 9/11 that I have to deal with, and cut it short and simple. So President Obama in 2008, 2009, 2010 discovered they found the hole where Osama bin Laden was laying. They had military guys. Shout out to my my military guys that came out, the Marine, the big guys came out and killed Osama bin Laden, shot him, and they had his face, and they put it all over the media. So it was during President Obama, President Bush's term. And then you have here in President Trump's office, 2019, 2018, 2019, and up until New Millennium 2020, when conflict resolution war is still taking place. But now people are actually having to deal with, who is this man? He doesn't know anything about war. He doesn't know what it's talking about. He can't deal with international trade. He can't deal with international relations. There has to be a different method to conflict resolution. We had better conflict resolution with Obama and Bush in office than we did with Trump in office. Because Trump is a businessman. He knows about business and he knows about money. But when you deal with relations with people and we deal with relations with international companies, international countries, you have to go back to Obama and you have to go back to Bush 1 and Bush 2, W. Bush and Bush Sr., deal with how do we overcome international conflicts. So when I'm about to finish it right quick. So when you deal with reflections on 9/11, you have to deal with the ways to overcome this. You have to deal with PTSD. You have to deal with friendly fire, WMDs, and you also have to deal with a lot of issues that people are suffering, constantly suffering, 24 hours a day, 24/7. And PTSD is not just a once a week counseling session and medication management. It is a constantly every single day experience, especially for people that are surviving 9/11, and especially for soldiers that have actually experienced 9/11 for themselves. PTSD is a high, it's a very, very strong psychological disorder. And it affects you for the rest of your life because you're always overcoming. People that went through the Holocaust have PTSD. It overcomes their life. People that went through Vietnam, people that went through World War I or World II, it affects them for the rest of their lives because they are not able to understand this. Why is this happening? So I'm going to finish out my little series on reflections of 9/11. I love you guys. Thank you for hearing me. Again, I'm on social media, SoundCloud. I have a podcast. What's my name? By Terry B. LinkedIn, on LinkedIn as LaQueen Battle, Facebook as LaQueen Battle. I'm on SoundCloud, I'm on iTunes, and I'm just constantly working on my podcast. But thank you to YouTube platform, thank you to social media platform, thank you to Onondaga Community College, thank you to Onondaga County Library for the Makerspace for helping me get all that set up. Thank you again to you guys for listening to me, my one listener. Thank you so much, as well as to YouTube. Thank you for the ability to access this free, and for those to be able to hear this. So if I can survive going through this and processing losing my son and go through all these years of change, all these years of technology, all these years of social media, if I can survive it, if I can survive domestic violence and sexual abuse as a young child, I'm not comparing my life to your life. I'm not comparing my life to anyway to have to deal with 9/11, but if I can overcome situations in my life, then I know that you can overcome it as well. So again, thank you to YouTube platform for today. Thank you to Onondaga Community College, Onondaga Public Library, the librarians today to let me use this free space, as well as to you guys for listening to me. I love you, to all my 15 subscribers and those around the world. Thank you again to the presidencies of President George W. Bush, President George Bush Sr., President Barack Hussein Obama. Thank you, Obama. Aloha, Obama. First Lady Michelle Obama, aloha, as well as to President Trump, President Donald J. Trump, and President Melania Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump. So again, thank you to all the presidencies as well. Continue if you make a change. If you don't like who's voting, if you don't like who you're voting for, be the change that you want to see. Be the change that you want to see. Thank you all for that. All right, this is LaQueen Battle from Onondaga Community College, LaQueen Terry Battle, LaQueen Arlene Battle's my legal name. I love you guys. Peace and love to you guys. Again, reflections on 9/11, my third part of this series broadcast. Thank you to our one listener today. Thank you to the YouTube platform. And again, if I have survived situations in my life, then I am similar to Elizabeth. If I can survive it, then I know you guys can too as well. So thank you again. Continue to support me on all my media platforms as well. I love you guys. Peace and love. Aloha from Syracuse, upstate New York. I love you guys. Peace and love. I'll continue to keep with you on my next series, on my next videos as well. Continue to support me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, SoundCloud, and iTunes. I love you guys. Peace and love. Aloha.